So as I'll make very clear later in this video, I adore Monstercat 7. It's by far the best compilation out of the early days, and it's just fantastic quality, and a lot of really interesting songs. So, the final song in this list that I've rated the lowest is only a 4 out of 10, and I actually don't even dislike it that much. The biggest issue I have with it is it doesn't really do anything to separate it. It is positive that it's like a Tristan song that isn't screechy dubstep, but it was feel a little bit less interesting, because even his songs that I've disliked have done something to make me feel about them. But this one, it's just very average in every way, really, and it's pretty normal dubstep for the time. Not a huge fan. So next up we have Breakdown by Noisestorm. The only thing keeping this from last place is the verses, because there's these really pretty vocal samples and these nice like trancey synths, and it's pretty usual for Noisestorm back in the day, where you'd have these really beautiful verses, then just these kind of awful drops. This one wasn't incredibly bad. I hated it, but I didn't like despise like hearing it. It didn't hurt my ears. I think the biggest thing is that there are a lot of different synths, but all of them still managed to sound the same. So it was like a wall of sound kind of thing, but it wasn't even a wall of sound. There were like 5 synths going in and out, but they all sounded the same, so it was just very uninteresting. So yeah, pretty poor dubstep yet again. Next up is Till Limit by Obsidia, and on Obsidia terms, it's good. I relatively enjoy this. The drop is chill, I can say that. I also heavily dislike the chords used in this song. I mean, they're very like space-basy, and I do feel like songs like this, and I think one that I mentioned a few times ago, I think something by Fixa, it's very like ahead of its time, but I'm not a huge fan of that music now anyways, so I do appreciate what it's trying to do, but I still have to give it a pretty average rating, because it's not really for me. Like, especially the piano chords in the drop just don't super work for me, but it's interesting at least. It stands out. So yeah, the first time I heard this, I thought it was kind of awful that I'd have to rate a song that was pretty good so low because of the vocal chop before the chorus that just says big ass titties, if I remember correctly. Yep. And I hate that. That makes me legitimately unhappy. But the more I listen to it, the more I realize that the actual everything else in the song wasn't very good either. So I'm rating it a 6 out of 10 because, you know, it's hard for electro to be like really, really awful, because at least it has like a good beat. Unless we're talking about Throttle and Insane like 3's last compilation. But yeah, this is pretty subpar electro. Next we have Seduction by Varian, and I actually remember loving this song when it first came out. But yeah, it hasn't really held the test of time. I guess the most positive thing it has going for it is the, I guess, Spanish influences with like the guitars and stuff, and these like whistles, and it's actually kind of interesting because I've not heard that sound, like, barely at all. Even today, with this huge like Latin music bomb, I still don't hear like any of that guitar kind of stuff that is being done here. So it's interesting. The drops are a little bit too like wobbly for me. They don't feel very intense either, so yeah. Not a huge fan, but I do like the theming, so yeah. It's alright. Next up we have Pin Up by Televisor, and I think his last song was kind of a fluke, because from here on out, most of his songs are pretty boring and sound similar, which is what most people say. This one especially, I dislike the vocals a lot more. The autotune and vocal processing is like much more prominent in this one, and I just think his singing is generally worse. There are some pretty nice guitar parts, which I do appreciate, but overall, it just doesn't really do much. And I mean, it does have a 6.5, so this could do okay in like a worse album, but since this album's so good, it's gonna hit the bottom of the list anyways. You have to do something good in this album to stand out, because there's a lot of great songs on it. So yeah, pretty average. Next up we have Gravity by Stereotronic. I don't exactly like this song, but I'm interested in it. The sound in the drop is this really weird squeaky noise, and the sound design on it is fantastic. It does kind of annoy me, I'll say that, but it at least made me turn my head and say, huh, that's interesting. There's really pretty progression before the second drop, and then it just doesn't get used at all. which was kind of disappointing. I mean, I know a lot of songs do that. I do that in my music as well, but I guess like on a song like this, where like the drop isn't even like intense, so it's not like it's like way of like juxtaposing it. It just doesn't work very well. Next up, we have Dance to It by Tata Child, and this is where the songs start getting very enjoyable. This isn't really special, but it's a pretty good banger, honestly. This is the first song on Monstercat I ever heard, fun fact, and I loved it when I was like 12. It's still pretty good now, honestly. It doesn't do anything too special, but it's makes me bob my head, and the entire thing is enjoyable. I guess like the biggest thing dragging it down is like later parts in the drop where it has these like very dated kind of glitchoppy things from this era. Because the beginning is great, I think I could still stand up very well today, but when it starts going into like a lot of different patterns, it just kind of starts falling apart. Like right here, for instance, I just like this part. But yeah, overall, good bop. So next up is Maelstrom, also by Tata Child, which I have similar opinions about. The beginning of the drop and the build-up is really fantastic for building its intensity, and it has like this bass that almost sounds like a guitar. It's just really, really heavy. It sounds intense even now, but the further up the drop it goes, it does kind of get dated. There's like different lead sounds, which do sound a lot more like the dubstep at the time, and then like same problem as the last song, the patterns start to get a little bit cheesy and dated. So if it was just more similar to the first bit of the drop, I would like this a lot more. But yeah, it's a pretty good song anyways. Epic Maelstrom. Next up we have Bloodlip, which the first time I heard it when I was like trying to rank it, I really disliked, mostly because the drop didn't really grab me and I hated the vocals, but since it's one of the first ones, throughout I kept kind of like having to re-listen to it, and over time it like heavily grew on me. I'm not exactly sure why, but I started to really like the chord progression and the vocals didn't seem as bad as they did before, so now I actually enjoy the song a good deal. I don't think it's amazing or anything, but it's, like the last two songs, it's pretty fun, and I do think it achieves what it's trying to do, because it's not trying to be anything huge or dramatic, just a fun old party jam with a edgy gal rapping over it. Just to prove how great this album is, from here on out I actually love all the songs. Starting off we have Hello Central Remix, and I really dislike the original Hello, just because of when it was made. It was on the very first album and just wasn't really good, but here we have a remix that really just takes away everything that made the original bad, by almost everything. It's very dissimilar to the original. It has like a similar vibe, I guess, and same vocal sample, but the drum and bass idea is really nice. The melodies and bass lines are just cool, and the sound design is very simplistic, but well done. And this shows that you don't really have to have a ton of stuff to make a pretty bopping tune. I enjoy this song heavily. Next up we have I Remember by Tristram, and this is probably my least favorite of Tristram's good songs. This is like definitely we started switching up his style to be like a lot more unscreechy and emotional, and I'm just not a huge fan of the chord progression I use here. It's well done, but I also just like the part where he goes, and it goes, oh, whoa, whoa, because I just dislike in songs when people like sing just a melody in that kind of style where it's go da 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 instead of lyrics, and especially when it goes like over the beat, it just doesn't really work for me. But it's still very well produced, and there's a lot of cool things happening here, so yeah, 7.5 out of 10. Next up we have Disconnected. This is yet another song I adored when I was like 10 or 12. Everything here is fantastic. I just love the beat and the melody and the everything. I guess the only thing I dislike here is the dubstep drop isn't the best. It doesn't flow with the rest of the song too well, especially how it's like instantly goes into build up. I think it's well done. I just don't think it was really connecting with this song too well. It was disconnected, if you catch my drift. But yeah, this is a pretty solid electro song. It is not my favorite melody in the world, but the sound design is on point, and it's just enjoyable. So yeah, solid tune. So fun fact, on the album when it was originally released, there was a song called House by Overwork, and about a year later, he requested that Monstercat take it down, and they did, and replaced it with this. So this song is actually a year newer than everything else, and I think it shows. The production here is fantastic. The only reason it's like so low is because this is such a good album. But yeah, I actually do like it. I feel like it fits in pretty well, and just the first drop is such a groove. Every time I hear it, I just have to move my head around. And the second drop is just this very, very cool, more melodic approach. So yeah, Stephen Walking and Solero just did a really great job with this. I'm a huge fan of Solero's stuff anyways, so yeah, fan. Next up is Reasons by Project 46. I've said that's like for half the songs here. Yeah, another song I loved when it first came out. I still really enjoy this one though. It holds up really well. There's a super, super charming melody at the beginning with like a little vocal chop, and it's this really nice little pluck. And it might just be nostalgia, but it makes me really, really happy. And the drops and vocals, just everything about it flows really well together. It's a super, super solid house song. And it's one of Project 46's best, because he did have a very iffy track record from back then. I liked a lot of his stuff, and I disliked a lot of his stuff as well, but this is definitely the top of his game, and I approve. Next up we have The Other Day by Insane Like. This song is just great electro. The only reason why I like rating this higher than like Disconnected, for instance, is because I instantly like the melody more. I can't really tell why, but it has this almost like dramatic feeling, and I just inherently like am more into this. And that's how I feel about a lot of songs from this era. I can't exactly say why I like them, but they just have this kind of charm. I feel like with like the production quality, they do kind of require this like inherent charm and nostalgia value to really work, because a lot of things haven't aged the best, but this certainly has. I really enjoy the way it sounds and everything. It's very solid tune. Next up we have House by Overwork. Technically a song that is not anymore in the album, but I decided to rate it 2, along with the new one. And it's pretty good. It's very, very good actually. I don't know, I said pretty good. The vocals are really nice, and the melody of the drop is just fantastic. Get another electro song on this album that just makes me want to bop my head and get into this instant groove. Everything here works super well, and it's kind of ahead of its time with that whole thing where it's like one bar of like really like happy like melodies and 3 bars of like just heavy bass after that, and it works super well here. I just feel like all this production is on point, and I'm kind of sad we didn't get to see more from Overwork. So yeah, very solid. So it's kind of weird rating this song so highly after it has all the things that I've said I dislike about his music in the past, but I feel like he kind of nailed the sound he always tries to do and just applied everything a lot better. The lead sound is silly, but also has a good intensity, and it doesn't have as many of the really annoying laser sounds that I didn't like in his music. Not too screechy. And then the drum and bass drop, oh my god, it's absolutely fantastic. Like that feeling when you start to hear that synth coming in and there's a bunch of these like crash hits. It's just so hype. It really works super well, and honestly I think this is just like a very well executed song from the time. And it does have all the things that made it kind of tropey, this genre, but it's done so well. Next up we have Time Bomb by Faint, and I just want to say these last few songs were difficult for me to rate because I love all of them, and they're all very, very solid. So it's kind of difficult for me to choose which I like more, but it's very, very great. The melodies here are super nice, the vocals are great, the almond breaks in the verses are super cool. I just think that everything here is very successful, and it's one of Faint's first songs in a little bit, and it's definitely the top of his game. In the past he had difficulties like with his mixing mostly, but here it's just like on point. Maybe because of Boy in a Band, who also produced this, who's a very, very good producer. But yeah, it's just a really great D&B song. So in the number 2 spot, we have IDK by Afixa, and this is one of the only songs that I cannot pinpoint at all why I love it. It just gave me this very inherent like feeling that it's meaningful. I don't exactly know how. I know it sounds like weird, but I almost feel like I've heard this in another life, because I just cannot pinpoint at all why it's so good. But the melodies here, the drop, they just all work really, really well. Yeah, Afixa's great, and this is like the first song that made me truly see why he's so beloved, because it's just everything here is fantastic. Um, yeah, I'm not exactly sure what to say. It just works in every way for me in a way that I can't explain. So now my number 1 and my first number 10 is Waking Dreams by 2/3, and I'm very, very stingy giving out perfect scores, but I sat on this for a very long time, and this truly deserves it. The vocals here are fantastic, the beat is really, really chill, and just emotional, and the entire thing is this really perfect vibe. I love like the old school house influences, and the bass line of drop is great. It has like his really signature Reese without being like over mixed like he usually does. So yeah, everything here is just, it's perfect. It's a really great song.